So I'm going to do a video kind of as is the way I get them sometimes. This one I really bought just for the motor. Looks to be an electric start. Briggs probably doesn't have a lot of hours on it. These little tractors, I mean, if you look, the tires are like brand new. People that have these generally have a really small yard, so a lot of times you can get one where the motor is actually still really good. I don't know anything about this. I bought it sight unseen for parts only, and it was a lawn sheep, which that looks like a Tecumseh logo, but it's funny that it has a Briggs motor in it. 300 832, so it's 8 horsepower, 32-inch cut. All the tires are flat except this one. I don't know how long they'd hold air if I did put some in there, but I just kind of want to see what works on this, what doesn't. We would pretty much drag it up there because it would not roll even for a second. So I don't know if the transmission's locked up or what the story really is on this one. Okay, so I've just been going around the machine, airing them up. The front tires look like they'll hold air. This tire is, I could actually feel air coming out of there. It's dry cracked there. You can actually see some bubbling. Oh, right there. Some bubbling water is boiling out of there. There's some dry cracks here, so that one's not going to hold air. I suspect this one was bad for a long time because it's the only one that doesn't have a valve stem cap on it, and they've probably been filling it. This one that hasn't been run low on air, the dry crack, well, first of all, it's not leaking, but also it has almost no dry cracks on it. So basically what I'm interested in here is the engine. So for anybody interested in this type, this oftentimes gives you something close to the year it was made, and it's 1986. It says safety standard, ANSI B, whatever. A lot of times that'll give you a clue. Also on Briggs, you can look at the date code. We'll get to that in a while. The date code is usually the serial number of the engine starts in the date code. Other clues, I think there's a way to read the tire, the stamping in the tire, if you know how to read that. I'd have to look that up, how to tell, but that might be a good indication too if you have all the original tires like this one does. So as I was trying to push it up on the trailer, we all noticed that that was real loose, so I'm just going to start by taking that off just to get a look at things. One thing I see that I do like is there's not a whole bunch of slimy old sludge down in the fuel tank, even though this cap has obviously been glued. I'm thinking this was stored inside, so it might not be a carburetor full of water like you might expect with a lot of scrap machines. Model number 300G, date code 26G, sequence number 351G, service number 228734, General Power Equipment, made in Harvard, Illinois. Huh. It's just got a simple little muffler. They got a special pipe just to bring it back so it doesn't heat up that tire. Pretty basic carburetor setup, the old classic air cleaner box. And I guess this is probably where the battery went. I'm guessing it had like a motorcycle style battery, must have been sitting here. I've got the negative here, positive there, so it shouldn't be too hard to hook something up to that. This is the gear selector. This has an unusual transmission in that it has a real transaxle. A lot of these just had those little Tecumseh chain drive boxes that really didn't hold up all that well if you were really going to use it. This one looks to have a standard transaxle. And I'm not going to say standard because it's obviously got short axle shafts and stuff like that because it's narrower than a regular one, I would think, but should have pretty standard parts there. I can't believe anything would be wrong with a transmission like that, transaxle, so it might just be the belts are stuck or whatever. I gotta take a look. Start with the basics. Do we have oil? Obviously it's on quite an angle here, so yeah, we have oil, and it's not bad looking oil either. So it's very possible that this engine could be perfectly fine. Oh, actually, did you see that? Let me turn the engine by hand a little bit. It's stopping. It's obviously seized on the pulley with the belt. I'm guessing the belt rusted in place because I can't even turn it over. The mower deck just jerks. So I'm going to get a look underneath there and see if I could get those belts loosened up. All right, let's see what this thing wants to do. Okay, there's no ignition switch. I think I got some kind of a, looks like a black and a red. That must be one for kill and one for start. That's all they had, I guess. Let me get it on choke. Put some gas in there. Neither switch does a thing. Okay. That should be neutral. Oh, it's got a seat switch. Red is the start. Nothing there. Okay. I'm going to assume it's the carburetor, but let me spray something flammable in there and see if we can get it to pop at all. The starter sounds real good. Turns over nicely. I guess I'll just use some gasoline because that's what I got with me. And of course, it drains right out because this kind has the bolt hole that plugs the hole. Alright, try it again. Boy, that sounds good. So I'm going to take the carburetor off, give that a 100% cleaning, and see where we're at. I think this is going to be a good motor. Alright, I'm just going to take the whole carburetor off. It's just easier to work on them. These are very simple to reinstall. That bottom bolt's going to be a little tricky. I'd rather not take the muffler off if I don't have to, but if I do, it's 2 bolts. This one doesn't look like it'd be very rusty, so I probably could get it off if I need to. thought I was going to drop something. Drop the other bolt. Try to find that now while I still can. There we go. Get the air tube unhooked. PCV vent. Sorry, not air. Vent. Let's call it a vent. There's our carburetor. So let's take that, open it up, see how it looks inside. A lot of times on these old Briggs carburetors, this is pretty much the standard of the old days. This still has the adjustable main jet, it has an idle jet, and it has the emulsion tube that can come right out. A lot of times you could just pull that emulsion tube, take this out, you know, maybe move the adjustment back forth a little bit. That's usually enough, but I like to see what's inside the bowl. If there's water, corrosion been in there, that gives you a real good indication. And then you won't have a bunch of stuff clogging up that might be sitting in the bottom. As it runs, you may get, if you didn't open it, all the stuff that could be sitting in the bottom as you go over hills and stuff, it starts collecting on the pickup, and pretty soon you'll have a clog anyway. So I just like to open it up. 1/2 inch wrench, standard on pretty much all of them. Take this out, and this will give you an idea of the condition it's been sitting in. Okay, here, a perfect example. That brown rusty water. So there is water in there. There's some sediment right there, and we need to get that out of there. It is water. Gasoline usually won't corrode stuff, so there was some water that had gotten in there at some point. And there's not much of it, which is another indication that the float could be stuck, or the pin itself could be stuck in its bore, the needle. Now the needle's not stuck actually, but I could see what looks to be water here. That doesn't look like gas. A lot of times you can tell the way it beads up. The gas will go flat and evaporate, and the water will just sit there. So I will have to flush the bottom of that tank some, and I for sure have to clean this. But the good news is the jet in there looks like brand new. So the water was just at the very tip of the bottom here. Not bad at all. Yeah, now that the water's out of it, you can see all this stuff here. That's why we didn't want to just try getting it running as is, because that stuff will sit there in that little cup pretty long. But one day it'll work its way over there, and then you'll be all clogged up. You might have got it running without it, but one day it'll move over and get in your jet and clog it all up. I'm going to leave the jet right in there, the main one. I'm just going to. It is so clean. Make sure that it blows through. And then on the top one, this is the idle. See how many it was out. 1/2, 1, 1.5. I'm going to call it 2. Take this tube out. This is the emulsion tube. It's got little holes here, there. It looks clean as can be, but I'm going to spray through it anyway. Sprays in all directions like it should. This thing's actually super clean inside. Check the tip of that. Looks fine. So then the way you adjust these is you just bury it all the way down like it was before. And then back it out half, 1, 1.5, 2, we're back where we started. I want to make sure the needle's going up and down like it should. It is. I don't like to use spray cleaner because the rubber gasket on the on the needle, or the rubber tip, depending on which kind it has, is susceptible to solvents, and if anything, just blow through there with some compressed air or something. And that also is making sure that this is wide open. At the same time, making sure that passage is clear. Ours is open and clear. Alright, as far as putting this back in, same procedure. Figure out how far it's down. So half, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5. That sounds like a lot. But what you do when you put these in, back these out almost all the way. What you don't want to do is have that out too far, and as you're turning the big nut, you're smushing the little tip here. Senseless. I might actually wipe this out, not just spray it out with solvent. Okay, see, now we have no loose anything to get in parts where it shouldn't be. That gasket there is not quite laying flat. We may have a problem with that. I'm going to try flipping it over, see if we can get it to go back in the groove. It got out of the groove there, and it was clamped down in that position, unfortunately. This might take a minute. Alright, I got it, so I think it's good. Make sure we got our sealing washer there, because that's the only thing that makes the seal down there. Tighten that one up to compress the gasket, no more than that. And then let's see how far this thing goes down while it's in there. Because when it was 5 out before, that seemed like a lot. Usually like 1.5, 2.5, something like that would be more. And as we can see, it's already hitting bottom there, so that's probably why. So let's go half, 1.5, and just see where it goes, see where that takes us. We'll adjust it once it's running. Here's the intake gasket. One thing I noticed is there's a little bit of, well, first of all, I noticed it's really out of focus. It's got a little bit of a carbon layer right against there, and I was wondering how that happened. This gasket is actually a little too small of a hole, so I'm just going to hog that out to let the engine breathe properly. It's a little bit restrictive. Okay, back here with the engine. Carburetor's back on. Give it some battery boost because it doesn't have a battery. Sweet. Let me try no choke. Lots of grease burning off, and the muffler's smoking out the muffler pretty good. I think that'll go away once it heats up. Still smoking, but I think that's just residual that was in there from sitting so long. Looking kind of starry. Pretty greasy here. And it's still foamy on the good part, so I'll try it. Sounds pretty good. I'm gonna see if any of the drive gears work just for the heck of it. Try not to melt my movement back in that muffler. Yeah, it drives. So red is go, black is stop. Well, if the blades turn, this is a complete working machine. Not pretty, it's not heavy duty, but it also wasn't more than a couple bucks. Correction. It is a 5-speed. And then the motion blade thing is the other lever, which I already figured. Okay, I just took the belts, blades, spun them all. Got a little bit of twine off to one side. I put the belt back on. Now let's see if it'll work with that. It's hitting something. I'll be damned. That thing actually works, except for the tire. The tire's just about falling off the rim any second, and I'm dragging my battery, or my jump starter. But, yeah, all the smoke cleared up after it ran for a few minutes. It's still smoking a little. Some smoke coming off the muffler there. I don't know if you can see that in the camera. Grease gets down there, and it'll just burn off. But yeah, not a bad little machine for a few bucks. And actually everything works, which is pretty surprising. Thanks for watching.